night, you guys had to read about the moderate phase of the revolution. Let's review it. One of the main causes of the French Revolution was famine and economic troubles. Another was the formation and division of the 27 million French people into 3 orders called the Estates General. It was called by King Louis XVI. But what did he expect it to do, Bianca? He called it to help relieve France's financial problems. Right, but it didn't work. The Estates General caused nothing but problems. It only grounded French society in the idea of privilege. Now, what did the Third Estate do when they finally had enough, Denise?
They formed the National Assembly to create a new constitution and push its demands for voting by head, which was when each representative got a vote, and since the Third Estate had 600 representatives and the First and Second Estate had 300 representatives each, it would have been an equal voting system instead of voting by order, which said that each state got only 1 vote.
Exactly. Then many conflicts arose. The Tennis Court Oath, the Great Fear, the fall of Bastille, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, the Women's March to Versailles, the Civil Constitution of the Clergy, and the Constitution of 1791. Ahtziri, can you tell me about any 2 of these?
The Tennis Court Oath was when the newly turned National Assembly arrived at their meeting place, only to find the doors locked. So they moved to a tennis court and swore to continue meeting until they produced a new French constitution. Since the Third Estate had no legal right to even turn into a National Assembly, Louis XVI went on the First Estate side and threatened to use force to dissolve the Estates General. That led to Parisian mobs to capture the Invalides and attack the Bastille, which were royal armories in search of weapons.
Good. Now, Grace, can you explain to me 2 more of the conflicts?
The Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen was a document by the National Assembly which reflected the ideas of philosophies of the Enlightenment and the American Declaration of Independence. It declared natural rights of men and liberty, an end to exemption from taxes, freedom and equal rights for all men, and a chance to hold public offices based on talent. And for the Women's March to Versailles was when thousands of Parisian women set for Versailles to confront King Louis XVI and demand bread for their starving children.
Precisely. Now let's move on to the radical phase of the revolution. Let's start with the Declaration of Pilnitz.
King Frederick William II. Have you heard about the poor fool Louis XVI?
Yes, Emperor Leopold II. I feel bad for him. He can hardly control his own people.
Exactly. We should help him, reestablish his powers.
Yes, let's. We can call other European monarchies to help.
For sure. The Declaration of Pilnitz, it will be called. This will also help stop the spread of that dang revolution. I don't want that in my land.
Neither do I. Let's do it.
The Declaration of Pilnitz never worked out, however, because other monarchs were too suspicious of each other and ultimately led France and the legislative army to declare war on Austria.
Why do we want war? Because it will serve as the distraction for this dumb revolution. It will cool down and we will finally be done with it, once and for all.
Ha! We want war so the revolution does spread. We want it to spread all over Europe. Liberty, equality, and fraternity.
Liberty, equality, and fraternity!
Yeah. Eventually, the French did lose, but it led to more and more protests against King Louis XVI. A radical Parisian commune then attacked the royal family and legislative assembly to force them to create a national convention to decide the future form of the government. Then, in September 1792, the National Convention became the ruling body of France. But even before that, there was a Paris Commune made up of sans-culottes.
We are the sans-culottes. We are proud of being radicals.
Yeah, we seek revenge on anyone who aids the king.
The sans-culottes were true rebels. They kept their word and arrested and massacred thousands of presumed traitors. But finally, the National Convention took over. Of course, the first thing they did was abolish the monarchy due to the most of the French people not trusting Louis XVI.
Congrats, man. We abolished the monarchy and established a long-awaited republic. Cheers.
Yeah, let's pat ourselves on the back. We just have one more issue to deal with.
What is it?
The fate over that damn king.
I say we kill him so he can get what he deserved.
Wait a minute. I still think we should keep him alive. You know, as protection against future conflicts.
Oh dear.
The two groups the National Convention split into were called the Girondins, which wanted to keep the king alive, and the Mountain, who wanted to execute the king. In the end, the Mountain definitely won.
By this decree, we, the Mountain, condemn King Louis XVI to death.
And on January 21st, 1793, the king was executed by the guillotine, and the destruction of the old regime was finally complete.
Down with the king! Down with the king! Down with the king!
Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet.
However, that didn't end all the problems in France. There was domestic and foreign crisis. People were forming coalitions in and out of France to attack this revolution and re-establish the old regime, so the National Convention, to enforce the government and protect the Republic, gave powers to the Committee of Public Safety, which was dominated by George Danton.
We order a universal mobilization of this nation. Young men will fight. Young men are called to conquer. Married men will forge arms, transport military baggage and guns, and will prepare food supplies. Women, who at long last are to take their rightful place in the revolution and follow their true destiny, will forget their futile tasks. Their delicate hands will work at making clothes for soldiers. They will make tents, and they will extend their tender care to shelters where the defenders of the patriotic nation will receive the help that their wounds require. Children will make lint of old cloth. It is for them that we are fighting. Children, those beings destined to gather all the fruits of the revolution, will raise their pure hands toward the skies. And old men performing their missions, as of yore, will be guided to the public squares of the city, where they will kindle the courage of young warriors and preach the doctrines of hate for kings and the unity of the Republic.
A nation in arms.
The Republic's army, called a nation in arms, was the largest ever seen in European history. It pushed allies back, conquered the Austrian Netherlands, and broke up the anti-French coalition of 1793. This was the creation of a people's government. The entire nation was involved in the war. However, a national crisis began, and to defeat it, the National Convention and Committee of Public Safety established the Reign of Terror.
We need to stop this domestic crisis. This republic is the best thing that has ever happened to France. We cannot let some snotty rich men who don't want to pay taxes and whatnot win again. We need to do something.
How about revolutionary courts to protect the Republic from internal enemies? We can kill anyone who is trying to challenge us by this revolutionary device, the guillotine.
Ah, brilliant, Robespierre.
Thank you. After all, my main goal in life is to purify the French people of corruption.
So the Reign of Terror began. About 50,000 people were executed under the guillotine, a machine with a blade used for the separation of heads from bodies. The terrorist executions took place in places that rebelled against the National Convention's authority, but to enforce their power the most, military force was used. For example, 1,880 citizens of Lyons were executed, and others were blown into open graves or sunken in ships in Nantes. The terror had no class prejudice. Its victims ranged from the loyal family, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, to former Girondins like Olympe de Gouges, and even peasants. It was truly a violent period full of bloodshed. Moreover, the National Convention, to keep order, pursued a policy of de-Christianization and created a new calendar.
We shall remove the word saint from street names.
Yes, and churches will be pillaged and closed by our army.
Also, priests should marry.
I have another brilliant idea. Let's create a new Republican calendar. The year should be proclaimed from by when the French Revolution was proclaimed. After all, this revolution is basically the mark of a new historical beginning.
Ah, brilliant. Let's rename the months of the year to evoke the seasons, temperature, and state of vegetation.
Ah, yes! There shall be Vendemiaire, which will be the harvest season, Brumaire, the misty season, Frimaire, the frosty season, Nivoisier, the snowy season, Pluvoisier, the rain season, Ventosier, the wind season, Germinal, the seeding season, Floreal, the flowering season, Prairial, the meadow season, Messidor, and wheat harvest, Thermidor, Heath, and Fructidor, the ripening season.
But this de-Christianization created more friends than enemies. It was later abandoned by Napoleon due to being politically unpopular. And then, later, the Committee of Public Safety declined and Robespierre was executed for being way too extreme. And then, Napoleon came into power, and we will read about him tomorrow. Now that we're done time traveling, let's take a quiz on the radical phase now.
LOL, I didn't study.